Hey class, I'm going to give you a little response here about the moral dilemma we've been discussing, female circumcision in certain African, Asian, and other cultures. A limited set of cultures, but certainly enough of a global issue to discuss. What I'd like to do is sort of talk about it in using the three theories that you read about and that I asked you to write about, right? So how would we look at female circumcision, or again, others might say genital mutilation, from these various perspectives? To give a little bit of background as well, for many people in these cultures, this is a long-standing religious ritual. There's sort of a coming of age that occurs. You know, Jewish culture might have a bar mitzvah. Other cultures might have the young boy turning into a man, go hunt, kill something on his own, do some kind of feat of strength. Sort of a coming of age moment, ceremony, ritual. So in these cultures, there's kind of a coming of age for the woman. There's also kind of a religious symbolism that she sort of gives her body back to God. She purifies herself by renouncing sexual pleasure. There's a sense in which this will maintain her purity and virginity to marriage. And so for many people within these cultures, this is a long-standing religious ritual. The argument from some in the West is that this is actually just part of a misogynistic or male-dominated society, and it's one more way of oppressing women. And my guess is that both of those things are taking place. For some in these cultures, it's a way of oppressing women and showing male dominance, ensuring that women are virgins while men, it doesn't matter what we do, sort of. But for others, my guess is this is, again, a very sacred ritual and something that's important and that's been passed down for generations. So what do we do with this? I mean, it strikes most Western ears, most Christian ears, as being just remarkably immoral. How could anyone think this is okay? What do we do about this? What should we do as Christians or as the United States? So, ethical relativism. Many of you did a good job, right? Ruth Benedict is a relativist. She makes the argument that we cannot take our cultural standards, our religious standards as Christians, and apply them to others who are not Christian or who are not Americans, who are not Westerners. They have their own religion, their own rituals, their own moral framework, and a relativist says we should be tolerant and allow for them to do what it is they're going to do within the boundaries of their culture. What is moral is defined by groups. There are no universals, right? That group has constructed a moral framework and a ritualistic framework that should be respected. Now, there might be one exception to that, right? If they try to go out and apply their rituals to outside groups, right? We're going to take all women, regardless of their culture or religion. We're going to remove the clitoris of all women. That the moral relativist would probably not tolerate because, again, they're taking their own group view and applying it to outsiders, and that's wrong. But that's not the case. It's only taking place to women within these cultures, and so we should respect them. That's the ethical relativist argument. Many of you seem to have a hard time with soft universalism. Let me try to articulate a little bit more clearly. Some soft universalists argue that there are things that we actually do agree on. All cultures sort of have some fundamentals about murder or stealing or other things. And so consensus builds universal morality. Other universalists, soft universalists, would argue, regardless of whether people agree, there just are certain moral universals. There just are things that no one should do and no one should have to endure, right? Even if you disagree, you're just wrong, right? I'll say it differently. Disagreement does not equal relativism. Two groups might disagree about morality, and it just might be the case that one group is right and one group is wrong. Soft universalists believe there are certain universals. We shouldn't kill innocents. And if some group does that and thinks it's okay, they're just wrong. Even if they disagree with us, they're just wrong. They shouldn't kill innocent people. Genocide is wrong, right? Stealing something is wrong. Torturing someone for pleasure is wrong. And whenever it happens, regardless of the culture, it's wrong. So the soft universalists believe there might be 1, 3, 10, depending on who you talk to, right? Let's say 10 universals. If any of those gets violated by any culture, it's wrong and should be stopped. But anything that lies outside of those 10 universals, we leave it up to ethical relativism. So if you're doing something and it has nothing to do with one of the universals, right? So a soft universalist comes to this dilemma of female circumcision and says, does this violate one of the universals? Well, maybe. If one of the universals that a soft universalist holds is no one should be forced, right, into a kind of mutilation, a torture, a physical pain, that no one's freedom should be stripped of them in this way. And anytime someone's freedom is stripped in that way, then it's wrong across the board regardless of culture. Well, if that's one of the universals, then a soft universalist would say that culture is wrong. We have every right to say that they're wrong and to step in and stop it. But if female circumcision doesn't violate one of the universals, then the soft universalists would allow for ethical relativism to win the day, and they would say, okay, well then that's just what their culture does. So again, a lot of it hinges on what are these fundamental universals, okay? A hard universalist believes all morality is black and white, right or wrong, for everyone. There is no sense of relativism. So female circumcision is either right for everyone or it's wrong for everyone, right? Again, let me reiterate, disagreement does not equal relativism. So the hard universalist simply says when people disagree about morality, one of us is right and one of us is wrong. Or both of us are wrong and there's some other third option that's right for all of us. Most Westerners who are hard universalists would say genital mutilation is wrong, it violates human rights, it violates this person's freedom and autonomy. If you're a Christian, it violates the body, which is God-given and should be seen as valuable, stamped with the Imago Dei, right? God's image. So many hard universalists in the West see it as being wrong for everyone. So I hope those three differ, right? I hope that makes sense to you in terms of how they would look at it. A couple of side notes. One, many of you brought up the notion of Christian morality. I agree with you that I think Christian morality would renounce this kind of genital mutilation, right? I think that there's a sense in which human beings are sacred, that we have intrinsic value because we are children of God, and that we should treat each other and ourselves as such. And mutilating a woman's body is not a moral good. And even if it's for purity, for chastity and virginity, that only has value if we choose it willingly. We choose to treat our bodies as sacred, and therefore we give our sexuality to God and we try to remain chaste. But if it's forced on us, I don't know what moral value there is there for the Christian. So I think Christians would be opposed, at least most Christians. The question is it okay for us to take our religious moral framework as Christians and apply it to non-Christians? Clearly we can make moral judgments. We can say, from our Christian perspective, we think you're wrong. Here's why. Here are the biblical passages we might point to, right? Certain Christian beliefs we might point to. So we can make moral judgments, but is it okay for us to impose our Christian moral beliefs onto others? Force them to stop doing what they're doing and to become Christian? Is that okay and moral, right? This question will come up over and over in this class. Can we take our Christian moral framework and impose it on non-Christians, other religious traditions, atheists, and whatnot? Is that okay? Would we be comfortable with other religions imposing their moral framework onto us? How do we do this well? And this is a very difficult question. It's something that we'll continue to talk about. Another interesting question that was raised by one of you or a couple of you, we might, as in the West, we seem to want to condemn female circumcision, but what about male circumcision? We put our young men, most of us do, and most Christians, through excruciating pain, through male circumcision. They don't enjoy it. We don't give them a choice. We do it when they're very young. We sort of impose our religious beliefs onto them. And we think it's perfectly okay. We have no problem with it. So why is that? Why is male circumcision okay, based on our religious rituals? Female circumcision is not okay for many of you, based on some other groups' religious rituals. How do we do this, right? So one of the questions that you might want to ask is, are there important dissimilarities between male circumcision and female circumcision that might allow for one to be okay, the other to be wrong, right? There's an analogy being created, male circumcision, female circumcision. If there are dissimilarities between the two, relevant dissimilarities that say, that makes this one okay and this one not, then we might get out of this conundrum. So I want you to think about that. What are some of the dissimilarities between male circumcision and female circumcision? Okay, so I want you to think about that for a second, because I'm going to sort of answer it from my perspective. Dissimilarities. I think the main one, some of you might be thinking this already, is that male circumcision does not affect their long-term enjoyment of sex. Sex can still be pleasurable for the male after circumcision occurs. There's a sense in which the good gift that God gives us in terms of sex, in its procreative function, it's leading to intimacy, pleasure, and other things, none of that is affected by male circumcision. However, female circumcision does affect the long-term pleasure and enjoyment of sex. It takes away one of God's good gifts, in the context of marriage, of course, right? But this is a good gift of God that seems to be fundamentally altered as a result of female circumcision. And so I think maybe there's a dissimilarity there that we could say male circumcision is okay, female circumcision not so much. But that's something that we can continue to talk about. I hope this response helps. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. Post it online. Let's keep the discussion going. And I look forward to getting to know you guys better online.